there's a personal element of psychological instability here that I believe is at work, which is that Donald Trump is psychopathic. This is a clinical judgment that is made by forensic psychologists and psychiatrists since he came on the public scene, and made repeatedly, and I think very cogently. This is not a man who gathers information and rationally processes it and maybe vicious, but is highly tactical, closes the deal, and so forth. This is an unhinged man who is impulsive, paranoid, psychopathic, and a megalomaniac. This is not the kind of person one wants in the presidency of the United States. I would say that Netanyahu has similar psychological traits. These are very violent, unhinged people, and it means that stepping back is not easy. Everything is a test for them of their own world, as well as more broadly a test of the American political class mindset of hegemony, which, despite all the evidence to the contrary of the fact base of hegemony, is still believed in Washington. So we have a very big structural and individual problem of getting any kind of de-escalation or any kind of resolution. I have one and only one thought about this. Frankly, it's not a very persuasive one, perhaps, but it is the one that I've been holding, which is that Donald Trump listens, to the extent that he listens at all, he listens to those he regards as his peers, and he does regard President Putin, President Xi, Prime Minister Modi as peers that he wants to be part of and live up to. These are leaders of superpowers. He inevitably, almost without exception, expresses respect for them, for the power that they hold, for their lead of superpower nations. They need to tell him to stop. I think it's extremely important. They need to tell him, Donald, this is not going anywhere. This is not going anywhere good. This is not helping you. It's not putting the United States in a better position. It is not helping any country in the world. It's dangerous. It needs to stop. I don't know if that is even remotely sufficient under these circumstances, but I think it is important to try. This is not the bluster, we're going to enter the war against you. Quite the contrary. It is to try to explain this has to stop, because if it continues on the path that it's continuing, it's going to bring us all to disaster.
Well, certainly having some coordination and more cooperation by the great powers, certainly something we need. If Putin and Xi are able to do this, it would be great. But what do you say, though? Well, you have advised many governments around the world over the years, and what would you tell, though, the allies of the United States? Because it appears that, well, the Gulf states, they very much also have embraced this principle of hegemonic peace. Also the Europeans, I mean, if we looked to Venezuela, for example, their main concern was that Trump talked about the oil rather than human rights, but the actual actions they weren't really against. And I assume as well, if he would have included them from the beginning, they would have been much more supportive of the attack on Iran as well. Instead, he let them, wait until the war had failed before inviting them in which they now do not want to partake. But But they also, especially the Europeans, have very much embraced the idea of peace through strength, which is a nice way of saying, militarism instead of real diplomacy. That is, will be so powerful that our opponents will have to do what they're told. Yet they shouldn't arm themselves to balance our might. So this kind of hegemonic idea of peace, this is something not just the Gulf states have benefited from, but also the Europeans still don't want to give up on, as we see in the conflict with the Russians. So how would you advise them today if they still, pick up the phone and call and ask, given the U.S. Losing its position in the world, where do they go now?
Of course, I've been saying exactly for the last decade at least, be careful of the United States. It's got a delusional foreign policy. It believes that it runs the show, but it gets you into deep trouble. I have repeated dozens, if not hundreds of times, my favorite adage of Henry Kissinger, that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. How many times have I said that to governments or in the European Parliament or to the Gulf leaders personally in recent years? Not just because of this war, but because of all of the circumstances that go back a very long time. I do not believe, for example, that countries gain any security whatsoever in hosting U.S. military bases. I've argued for years and suggested for years that these countries invite the United States to go home. You don't get security. These bases are a magnet for conflict. But more than that, they suborn your own sovereignty. European countries remain 80 years after the end of World War II semi-occupied by the United States. And the United States meddles deeply in European politics to a shocking extent, actually. And so my own recommendation has been repeatedly this idea that you are finding security in the United States is wrong. The United States has its own rather bizarre ideas about the world, which is hegemonic control.
播报新闻是我的日常，必须时刻保持妆容和皮肤的最佳状态。当来到人生中最重要的时刻，也是 KS 逆时奇迹帮助我轻松驾驭，闪闪发光。KS 逆时奇迹活肤露全效精华、精华霜，多达5种 EGF、6大冻龄关键成分，保湿效果让我非常满意，小细纹也不再困扰我。我就是我自己的最佳女主角 ，KS 让我从容自信，光彩动人。我是我人生中的大女主，我的最爱我做主。KS 逆时奇迹系列热卖中，下单请上快点购，透过中天新闻网 App 下单立减50，或输入 CTI 推荐码有额外折扣。